Welcome, everyone, to the Mile High Champions League weekly podcast. I am your host, the Commish, and with me, as always, is a great idea to get the kids in the car, Big Nolski. Sir, how are you tonight?
Nice. I love how the Apple stuff is doing things now. I got a voicemail from a customer on Friday, and it registered, this is blank, and he said his last name, but the last name Siri thought was Florida. So wonderful. I'm doing just fine. I'm ready for the week to be over, even though it's only Tuesday. How about yourself?
I can echo that feeling, particularly for you, because it's actually Wednesday. So, in good news,
nice.
It's one day closer to the weekend. In bad news, time is hard. Weeks are difficult.
That's wonderful, though. Why did I think it was Tuesday? And I have a conference call tomorrow morning on Thursday.
Woo.
Yeah, there we go.
It's like The Office, where he's like, "It's Thursday." No, it's Friday.
Who wants to come on a Friday?
What day do you think it is? Anyways, okay, so let's dive into some fantasy football. First of all, I want to apologize to you out there in Fantasyland for not being able to do a podcast last week. For those of you who have moved, or all of us have moved, sold a house, it sucks a big one. And so Courtney and I have been fully engrossed in that. So I'm very sorry that we missed last week. Hopefully that won't happen again this season, because we have a little bit more time in the evenings, which is when Noel and I record. But last week we were just getting ready to get the house on the market. So apologies there, folks. But I want to talk about one quick thing, because it is historic. Last week, Brandon set a new record for points in the Mile High Champions League. 200. Where is it? Where'd it go? Yeah, nope. There we go. Week 4. Not only are days hard, computers are just the worst. So Brandon won his first game, and not only did he win, he won in amazing fashion. 246.8 to Josh's 112.4. So there's a couple things to note there. First of all, he was clearly the MVP, but now he has the new trophy, which I created, which has Walter Payton's statue on there, just because I think he's awesome. That is the new trophy for most points scored ever in a single game. So congratulations, Brandon, on that. Moving on to week 5, the MVP of this week was Nick, who beat you 209 to 184.5. We'll talk about why that's the case shortly here. The MVP is mostly because of the space in the force-ness. But the MVP letters are also hard, apparently.
Letters.
James Conner, who scored 57 points for the Parker Rams. Not enough, unfortunately, to earn a win. He lost by less than 2 points. Nope, more than 2 points, 2.4 points. So numbers are hard, too. So the things that are difficult tonight are words, numbers, letters, days of the week, and the English language pretty much in general. So James Conner did very well for Matt Larson this week. He got him on 21 rush attempts. So he's the new Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh. That's just hands down. 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he got a couple receiving yards as well. This dude is on fire. So congratulations, Larson, on having the foresight to pick him up. The Survivor Challenge elimination for the week is Josh, who for some reason is taking a bullet for the league every single week. So we had Noel and Brandon eliminated in the first 2 weeks. Then Josh eliminated in the 3rd week. And then Josh in the 4th week. And now Josh in the 5th week. So Josh has just taken a bullet the last 2 weeks. So that means there's going to be at least 3 people who will be splitting the Survivor prize at the end of the league, or end of this season, at the end of week 12. So thank you, Josh, for doing that. That is appreciated by those who are still within the Survivor Challenge. Now let's go on to, there's no new awards this week. Let's go on to the recap of the week. And the first one for you, Noel, that would be the Spartans at the Legends of Lincoln.
This was obviously quite a close game, with Courtney edging out Brandon 162.4 to Brandon's 159.8. And as you can guess, fairly similar scores. Stafford had a down week, 19.8 points. David Johnson seems to be sort of coming back, 28 points. Julio Jones Man, just Atlanta had a terrible week this week. 17 points for him. Jared Cook, 8, 19 for Matt Breda, who is, unfortunately now might be out for a while. TJ Yeldon, 37 points, huge week. His punter continues to be one of the better ones, who I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Dan Bailey had a solid game, and his defense had a solid game. But even with Patrick Mahomes having a down week, only netting 22.4 points through his first interceptions of the season without throwing any touchdowns, he did run for 1. Christian McCaffrey had a slow week for him, but still 29 points. 30 points for Cooper Kupp, even though he left, I think, the game in the second half with a concussion. Benjamin Watson, slow game, 10 points. Kareem Hunt just kind of hasn't been the fire he was last year, but 25 points is still really good. Keenan Allen, 27 points. Matt Hack, punter, aptly named because he's playing for a hack of a team in Miami, 9 points. Brandon McManus, slow game like all of the Broncos. Packers defense, bad week for them. They basically got torched by the Lions. Oh, and I don't want to rub it in, but Brandon did mention it in a text tonight. Brandon had himself 64 points in one player alone sitting on his bench. Not to mention Andrew Luck, 34.6 on his bench, and 12 points from Tyler Boyd, which he obviously wasn't going to start and wouldn't have made a difference. But that 64 points is huge. But as we've talked about before, we've all done that seasons past, or I think I've done it this season, and many other people have. So, nice close game here, and I'm sure Courtney was sweating it out a bit at the end, but a good win for her. And Brandon is having fun with me at the old 1-4 on the season. So
that's not fun. Sorry.
It's awesome. What? Never mind. Now on to Kings of the North versus America Doom Givers.
America. I learned about Courtney's win in the middle of the night. I had already gone to bed, and all of a sudden I hear, "Oh my God, I won!" So that was fun. Let's go then to the big game Noel just mentioned. So this was a solid win for Ben, his third in a row. He actually advances not just to first in the Pacific, but first in the entire Mile High Champions League with this win.
Go Ben.
Unfortunately, yes, indeed, go Ben. Ken Fielder in his second loss of the year, which is not too bad given everything going on. I think with the standings in general, which we'll touch on right before we do the previews, it's a very minus the 2 1-4s. It's a very even scoring. Excuse me, there's 3 1-4s. It's a very even scoring in the middle of the pack so far. So there's no breakout folks, there's no undefeated teams, and there's no winless teams. So this is still anybody's game so far. So let's look at what happened in the game here. 2 quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers for Ben, Cam Newton for Ken Field. Aaron Rodgers had a phenomenal game, 41 points there, obviously edging out Cam Newton almost double by -7 points. Did a really good job. Alvin Kamara and Adrian Peterson, despite the fact that Ken Field's lover boy, Adrian Peterson, did very well for him 2 weeks ago, got 40 points, seems to have fallen back to what you would expect for someone of his age and having been run through the NFL and so many yardage and miles and all that kind of stuff. He got 10 points. Funny enough, though, Alvin Kamara, stud of the last 2 weeks, also got 10 points. So there's very neutralized there. Wide receiver position, DeAndre Hopkins is doing very well this year. He got 40 points for him. He's the number 2 wide receiver through the first 5 weeks of the year. AJ Green, though, almost matched him point for point, got 31 points there. Very good week for him as well. In the tight end position, if I said to you, Noel, who do you think is going to score more points? Jordan Reed or Jeff Swaim? Who would you say?
I would say Jordan Reed.
I would too. Unfortunately for Ben, that was not the case. And it didn't really affect his game too much because he did very well in the flex position, as we'll get to. But Jordan Reed got him 5 whole points. Woo. It's bad for a kicker. Jeff Swaim, however, Dallas tight end, I guess replacing the other guy, Jason Witten, 14 points. So good job there, Kenfield. In the flex positions, we had Ben with Marvin Jones Jr. and Robert Woods. Kenfield, the amazing Tyreek Hill, and Kerryon Johnson. Now, I think Kerryon Johnson might have scored a few points, but he hurt his ankle in the game, and I don't think he was really able to put forth the effort he should have been able to. Marvin Jones and Tyreek Hill facing off against each other. Marvin Jones got 8, Tyreek Hill 21, so that battle obviously went to Kenfield. Robert Woods put up 33, though, which handily beat Kerryon Johnson's 19. This is where it really started to split. The Titans D got 16 points ahead of the Jaguars, 6.5 for Kenfield. So I think that collectively it was a good week all around. You can't be too sad with 141 points. But Ben should be happy with his third win of the fourth win of the year, third win in a row. So both these guys are doing well. Let's move on to the next game. 5 Second Chug versus the crappy Lincoln's Mavericks.
So this was a game where I think it's just going to be tough to beat anybody who has two players that put up 40 or more points. Because if you look at that, besides Antonio Brown 42, Zach Ertz 41, there's some down scores here. Like, whoever Naheem Hines is, 25 points, that's really good. And 21 points from Sterling Shepard, who's up and down. Really, really good. But what really kind of separated this game here, Mike, was the Dolphins defense, which was spectacular in the first half with 25 points and bad in the second. Sorry, in the first half with 25 points alone. Managed to hold on even though just their offense fell apart and gave up, I think, 2 touchdowns on the other end, which dinged Molly there. And that overcame, a 5-point effort from Will Fuller, who left the game early with an injury. And I'm surprised Mason Crosby even got her 2 points, considering he missed 4 field goals and an extra point. Which, bad game for him. But unfortunately for you, Mike, you also had a player that put up that dreaded single digit with 2 points from Vance McDonald, who, after just looking amazing last week, only had 1 catch on 2 targets this week. So, so contributing to your 144.8 here, Mike, was Carson Wentz, who looks like he's starting to come back, 31.8 points. Melvin Gordon, just being Melvin Gordon, 33 points. Michael Thomas, 18 points, but really what he did in that game was they were just focused on covering him. So, Mike, you got the, how do we call it? Michael Thomas got the Saints the win, but he didn't help you because all that matters is stats. Golden Taint, down game, 13 points, despite a good game from the rest of the team. 31 points from James White. A huge pickup for you, Mike. I mean, and he does almost all of his work receiving, which is awesome in our league. And then from there, I think this is the worst week if I can remember for your punter, Michael Dixon, with 2 points, 7 points from Will Lutz, which isn't bad from a kicker, but for Will Lutz is low. And the 49ers defense, which should have been a very good start against the hapless Cardinals, only got just 7. So that wasn't going to be enough to overcome 192.6 points. So this is a tough loss for you, Mike, but there's some stuff to like on your team as always. You've just been struck with tight end problems the whole year. And 42, 41, and 25 from a defense, tough to beat. Go. Good win, Molly. And there's always next week, Mike.
There's always next week. Amen. And congratulations, Molly, on your win. Well deserved. Let's go on to the next game. The Space Force versus Tattletown Warriors, as we talked about. Nick being the MVP. You can't beat the MVP. That's the whole point. Won 209.4 to Noel's very, very respectable 184.5 here. Looking at the teams just going down the list here, Drew Brees, 40.2. Set a new NFL record, by the way. I'm sure you already know that, Noel, but he has the most passing yards now all time. He passed our homeboy, Peyton Manning, there. So congratulations to you, Drew Brees. I'm sure you're listening to this podcast right now instead of prepping for the...
Indubitably.
Actually, no, it's a bye week, so I guarantee you he's listening to this podcast right now.
Better be.
You goddamn better be. Kirk Cousins had a good week. Oh, by the way, did you see his completion percentage? 26 for 29. Ridiculous. Dude's ridiculous. First ballot Hall of Famer all the way. Yeah, exactly. Kirk Cousins had a pretty good week. As I would say, kind of a down week for good old Kirk there. As he's been averaging 33, even including this week. So 23 is a bit low for him. In the running back position, Nick started Philip Lindsay, got 21 points, and you had 44 with my man crush, Saquon Barkley, just because, and I should say it's a fantasy crush, not a man crush. 44 points from this dude is amazing. 15 rushes, 48 yards. Where he's really getting the points for you, though, 4 receptions, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So this dude is going to be a PPR monster for years to come. So he obviously did much better than Philip Lindsay, doubling his score there. The wide receiver slot, though, this is where things look different. Calvin really got you a not too bad 11 points, not great, though. But Odell Beckham Jr. was almost the MVP of the week, 54.2 points. He was just a few points shy of James Conner. He would have been the MVP. He had an amazing game. He had, first of all, he had one touchdown pass for 57 yards, by the way.
And if I can interject here, that pass flew farther in the air than any other pass, any pass Eli Manning threw in that game. So,
that is pathetic.
It sure is.
That is super sad. Wow. Oh, Eli. He should just, I don't think the Giants are going to win the Super Bowl this year. It's hard to argue going out on top. I don't think they're going to win it next year. They still have a lot of holes to fill, and it's not common that a second-year coach wins the Super Bowl. So might want to just consider hanging up his cleats. I think he's just not looking too great. So anyways, going on to the next position, tight end position, both of you had a good week here. You had the better one. Travis Kelce got you 28 points on 5 receptions and an even 100 yards. Kyle Rudolph, though, had a good game, just not as good. 5 receptions for less than half, 41 yards, got him 13 points. Going to the 2 flex spots, this is where I think the game was decided, minus obviously Odell Beckham Jr.'s monster game. He had Stephon Diggs and Juju Smith-Schuster with 33 and 16 points apiece, very good. You had Devin Bunches of Funchess and Mohamed Sanu at 14 and 25 points there. You punters had a pretty good game, I guess, puntastically. Harrison Butler got 13.
Butler!
I mean, that's amazing. That's really good. Where I think you got really close and you wouldn't have gotten the dreaded EB award, fortunately, because Molly, Vanny, and Matt Larson all had higher scores. But you had a really good game at 184 points, and part of that was the wise decision to play the Bengals D against Miami. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and 3 sacks, and they only allowed 17 points, netting them a whopping 30.5 points for the defensive line there. So congratulations to you on that pick. However, this just wasn't enough to best the MVP of the week. So sorry about that, Noel. This would be your 3rd loss in a row. That's not fun. You're 1-4, 4th place in the Pacific. Nick has his first win since he lost last week. He is 3-2 and tied for 1st in the Atlantic. So move on to the next game, the Buffaloes at the Rams.
Yeah. So this one features Ralphie versus a plush toy. And it was quite a close game, and both teams had just very good outings. It was just the Buffaloes just managed to edge out the Rams 194.6 to 192.2. And really, wow, this game just came down to Doug Baldwin doing jack shit. Well, not jack shit. He caught 1 pass for 1 yard on his lone target and obviously got Larson a single point. But, I mean, from there, both quarterbacks fairly similar. I didn't watch the Monday night game, but I heard Alex Smith looked just terrible, was getting people hurt. So 18.6 points from him. He did score a rushing touchdown, so there was that. He didn't throw a touchdown, though. 22.6 points from Matt Ryan, which this is what really surprised me this week. Pittsburgh's pass defense is really not very good, and Matt Ryan, with those weapons, basically did jack shit. So that was surprising. Onto the running back, Zeke Elliott. I don't know what is wrong with Dallas's offense, but 23 points from him is very, very disappointing. But 30 points, Sony Michel, who another good pickup, but although he's listed as questionable. Oh, no, 30 points. Already talked about Doug Baldwin. 39 points, Adam Thielen, who is, I think he's probably outscoring, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, he's outscoring Stephon Diggs this year. So he's like the number 1 wide receiver in Minnesota and just a breakout superstar who was a former undrafted free agent, just basically showed up to the camp and see to get a spot. So that's big. Eric Ebron, who had an underwhelming career in Detroit, 45 points. Huge for a tight end, huge for any player, really. And that beat Skittles, George Kittle's 21 points, which is very good. 23 points, Emmanuel Sanders, really, really good. 31, Joe Mixon, better. 57 from James Conner, so that's going to be tough to beat anyways. And Marshawn Lynch, who, again, watched his team on a goal-to-go situation throw a basically game-sealing interception rather than run the ball up the middle, only got 10 points. And that was just sad because 13 points from Matt Larson's punter. That's amazing. 13 points from a punter. God damn. But then again, the Jets defense got 19 points because fire Vance Joseph. But yeah, great showing for both teams, but good win for Vanessa here. And Larson, having yourself a not bad season considering the hand you've been dealt as far as injuries and everything. So keep working through it, my man. And now on to the next game, which features, let's see, how do you actually pronounce Great's team, Michael?
It is the Galloping Ganadoras. Basically,
yes.
the Galloping Winners.
Which yes, he was.
He was very much so. In fact, he's looking very good. 165.6 to Josh's 108.8. I don't know what's going on with Josh's team this year.
He didn't start a punter. There's that.
There's that, yeah. Not that would have really determined the game, but it's just sloppy. Well, actually, it's irrelevant because Grant's kicker or punter got 0, so it's a moot point.
Yay!
So, yay, battle of the dorks. Looking at this game, I really can't figure out, besides maybe Brandon Cooks getting injured and getting 0 points, it seems like Josh should be scoring in the 130 range at least. So he's on the struggle bus. He's lost his last 3. His record's 1-4. Arguably, I think he's the last in the MHCL right now. But it's only week 5 or it's week 6 presently. So we've only been through 5 weeks. We still got the majority of the season ahead of us. Don't get discouraged, anyone. There's still plenty of game time left. Looking at this game, Ben Roethlisberger got 30.8 for Josh. Deshaun Watson got 34.6 for Grant. Good, kind of evenly matched guys there. The big thing here is Jay. I think he was just bit by the injury bug this week. Jay Ajayi is out. He's on the injured reserve now. He tore his ACL, which anything that ends with CL is going to end your season for pretty much. So if it's an ACL or MCL tear, you're done. And it's an ACL tear for him. He's out of the game he's out of the MHCL for this season. Jarvis Landry. Oh, wait, let's talk about the other running back here. This little guy called Todd Gurley. He got him 44 points for Grant. This dude is just amazing. 3 touchdowns last week. I mean, unbelievable. Todd Gurley is just a machine. He's the number 2 running back. He's scoring 41.6 points on average per week. The wide receiver slot, Josh had Jarvis Landry, got 18 points. Grant had John Brown, a Baltimore wide receiver, got him 15. In the tight end slot, we had Rob Gronkowski, who is, oh my God, is he questionable? Not Rob Gronkowski. I never would have imagined.
What?
I know, weird. At least he got him a good amount of points this week, 21 points for Josh. Jimmy Graham, though, 21 points. I'm part of Drew Brees' awesome week, 6 catches for 76 yards, so very good production by both of their tight ends. Flex position for Josh was just lacking this week. Brandon Cooks got 0 points. Goose eggs always hurt. He did go out with a concussion in the last game, so that's certainly understandable why put up a goose egg. He can't really play if you're concussed. Alfron, wow. Alshon Jeffrey got 9 points. Not a really great showing for them. I was watching that game. He just doesn't seem to have the same chemistry. And not a ton of great receivers, quite frankly, in Philadelphia. But between Ashlon and Nelson Aguilar, that's pretty much all Carson Wentz has to throw to, besides Zach Ertz. That's why I think he throws to him so frequently. But Alshon and Royce Freeman got 9 and 12 respectively. So really kind of a pathetic week by both of their flex spots. As I talked about, the punter slots are irrelevant. The kicker slots, Randy Bullock scored 10. Actually, this is completely neutralized. 0 points for the punters. Both kickers got 10 points apiece. Here's where a big split came. The Broncos defense, as I'm sure we're all watching, did absolutely horrible. Got 5 points for Josh this week. Contrast that to the Browns defense. Yes, the Browns defense.
That Brown
interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 sacks. Only now 9 points against Baltimore, which they actually beat. Got 20 points. Unbelievable. So anyways, let's move on to the previews here. And we have two teams on bye week this week, the Detroit Lions out of Detroit and the New Orleans Saints, who are out of New Orleans, Louisiana. So let's start here with the first preview of the week, which is going to be two teams playing in the Mile High Champions League.
What?
That I will pull up with my controller once I get to the game here, not wasting time or distracting. Okay, here we go. It's Vanessa versus Ben. So looking at this one, the line has Vanny winning 167.6 to 161.6. It's going to be a close one. Actually, before we do that, hold on. Let me yawn first. That's not why I wanted to pause. What I wanted to pause was actually just talk about the standings. So in the Pacific right now, Ben is winning 4-1. Following up is Grant and Kenfield at 3-2 and 3-2. And then Noel is taking I was gonna say trailing at the bottom, but then I said taking. So that would have come out taking up the bottom. Yeah, like that, don't you? Taking it up the bottom at 1-4. It's appropriate. Oh my. In the Atlantic Conference, is very, very evenly scored here. But Vanessa, Nick, and Molly are all 3-2. The scores are fairly consistent there. Vanny has 945, Nick has 903, and Molly has 892. So they're all very, very even there. It's just Josh is kind of bringing up the rear is the actual expression I was going for. So be careful, kids.
Did you see Josh's, like, where he sits as far as points for and points against?
Yeah, it's
brutal. That's
he
fucking
needs to
brutal.
Make a sacrifice to the fantasy gods. They do not like him this year. We've all been picked on by the fantasy gods. We all know what it's like. So please say a prayer, do a rain dance, do something for Josh, because his score, he's averaging 139 per game. But as we know, with the new scoring regime, that's good, but not great. Contrast that to Grant, who's actually scoring the most in the MHCL. His average score is 194.6. So he's averaging almost 60 points more per game. What are you going to do? I mean, people are just running up the score on Josh. It's not even fair. And then to top it all off, his players are just not performing to the level that they should be. So he's underperforming on the points for. So, yeah, let us all take a moment and say whatever we need to the fantasy gods to at least, this is a competitive league, but we're all friends too. Let's at least hope that the fantasy gods show some level of mercy to Josh.
Well, I think it would, because I have second worst points for at 820.5. Poor Josh has 697.1.
Yeah.
And then he's second in most points scored against him. That's not cool. Not cool. Not cool, world.
Not cool, fantasy gods. Get your shit together. Damn it. Now I'm fucked. I just told the fantasy gods I'm going to lose this week. So that sucks for me. Anyways, back to the previews. So there's a couple injuries, very big ones actually, on both of their sides. Let's talk about that first. Eric Ebron, Vanny's tight end, is questionable, as is Marshawn Lynch. I assume if he eats enough Skittles, he'll be fine. On Ben's side, Aaron Rodgers, DeAndre Hopkins, and Chris Thompson, all questionable. That could be tough. He does have Alvin Kamara, too, on bye week. So Ben's running a little low in the if he needs to pull guys off the waiver wire at the last minute, it's going to be kind of challenging for him. Looking at the quarterbacks, it's Russell Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers. Both of these guys are obviously quite good. However, Russell Wilson has just not been playing up to Russell Wilson-esque points this year, and Aaron Rodgers has. So I think I got to give the check mark to, as ESPN did, to Aaron Rodgers. In the running back slot, Ezekiel Elliott versus LaShawn McCoy. We're talking about guys who are just not having a great year. Look at Sean McCoy. LaShawn McCoy has been averaging 10.6 points. I think it's time for him to retire too. He's gotten over that age 30 mark, and that's usually the breaking point for running backs. He's just not. I just don't think he's going to do well. He's running against a mediocre Houston defense, and even though Ezekiel Elliott is running against a pretty good Jackson front seven, I have to give it to Ezekiel Elliott there. Adam Thielen, as you were talking about, Noel's having a monster game. He actually set an NFL record. He's the first person in the history of the NFL to have 5 consecutive games of over 100 yards. That, my friends, makes him the #1 wide receiver in the Mile High Champions League, averaging 39.6 points for Vanessa. So even though DeAndre Hopkins is the #2, averaging 35.0, I think I have to give it to Adam Thielen, particularly because both of them are facing tough defenses, and DeAndre Hopkins is questionable. He was a limited participant today in Wednesday's practice with a foot injury, so he'll very likely play this weekend. I don't really get worried until they don't practice on a Friday or we're limited on a Friday. So I think DeAndre Hopkins will play. But I still think Adam Thielen, he and Kirk have a strong relationship. I've seen them out holding hands. They share ice cream sundaes. They're very friendly. So I think that their chemistry is really good up there in Minnesota. I think they're going to do really well. So again, I think ESPN's got it right going to Adam Thielen. Eric Ebron versus Jordan Reed. I think Eric Ebron is an underrated tight end. He's the 5th overall, averaging 21 points this year. That's pretty awesome. He's broken. He was held out of practice today. And normally, when you look at the kind of what's going on with these guys, it's like Eric Ebron, and in parentheses, ankle or shin or face or whatever. He has 4 injuries, so it's too early to tell. Pretending that both of them are perfectly healthy, I think that you have to give it to Eric Ebron just because he and pass happy Andrew Luck are just connecting this year. So I think he's going to do very well. So again, I think that goes to Eric Ebron. Emmanuel Sanders versus Robert Woods. I like Emmanuel Sanders quite a bit, but LA is just on fire this year. In fact, here's my crazy bold prediction on week 6. I think the LA Rams are at least going to the Super Bowl, if not winning it. They look really good this year. The things that could take them down would be a injury to Jared Goff or I should say Todd Gurley, because if one of those guys goes down, they're going to really struggle. I would imagine they might still win games, but they're not going to be just dominating the way they are now. So I think that you got to give that to Robert Woods. This guy's been a stud. In the flex 2 position, we have Marshawn Lynch for Vanny and Chris Carson for Ben. I think that you got to give it to Skittles there. I don't think that not George Kittle. The guy who just loves Skittles. He was a limited participant today, so I'm assuming he's going to play. He's facing a pretty weak Seattle, which is funny because he used to play there. He's facing a pretty weak Seattle run defense. Chris Carson's facing an even weaker Oakland defense there. So I think both these guys will do well, but I think Marshawn Lynch has a better opportunity to score. The Jets D playing Indy versus the Titans playing Baltimore. That's a tough one. I think the Jets look on fire this year, at least on defense. Their offense is mediocre, but their defense is really, really good. I think that one is the ESPN actually has going to the Titans, but I do believe that's the Jets' points. Because Andrew Luck throws 40, 50 passes a game, he's very prone to throwing interceptions. So I think that the Jets will at least score a couple points there. They might have the score run up on them, and that might drag their score down. But I think that overall they're going to have their opportunity to sack Andrew Luck, which, as we know, is basically par for the course for him. And then they'll have the opportunity to intercept since there's so many balls flying at their faces. Then the kickers and punters, you can expect around 20 points for those guys. This is a really close game. This is a really close game. I'm going to bet, I would wager one shiny nickel that Vanny is going to win this week, just because I think that Adam Thielen is just going to continue to dominate, and I think DeAndre Hopkins having that slight little injury, even though I'd expect him to play, he might be held back a little bit. So I am going to give this one to Vanny. Let's move on to the next one. F and balls. I think I misread this. I'm just going to do yours, Noel, since okay. Let's do that one, and then you do the next two. So this is us planning ahead, folks. So the next game is Noel versus Brandon. These two old friends, what can I say about them? Both are insanely strong. Both are insanely athletic, and both are extremely good at video games. All right, let's move on to the next. So, all right, let's actually talk about football here. This is extremely close. The line is only 2.1 points in Brandon's favor, 164.1 to Noel's 162. This, I think, is going to be a really fun game to watch. Now, if Brandon puts in a defense, his line will be higher. Brandon's got this new kind of fun strategy where he's like, I'm not going to start anybody. Just kidding, full roster. So, I mean, we'll see what Brandon does. He does have the Ravens defense just sitting there waiting to get played, and they're projected to get 12 points. So imagine a line of plus or minus 14 for Brandon there. But let's look at these guys. Kirk Cousins versus Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck seems to be back in good form here. He had a kind of a un-Andrew Luckian second week there, but he seems to be back into his normal self here. He's going up against a decent Jets pass defense. We were just talking about them. They're number 15 overall, but I do think that they're going to get to him, and they're going to get some points there. Kirk Cousins is going to have a harder week. Arizona has a pretty good defense. They're the number 4 against the quarterback overall. So I think the ESPN has it going to Kirk. I'm actually going to go with Andrew Luck here, even though I think he is going to throw a pick or two because he's thrown 5 picks so far in 5 weeks. So he's averaging 1 a week. I think he'll probably throw at least 1 this week, but I think he'll also throw 3 touchdowns. So I think he'll certainly make up for that. I'm going to give that to Andrew Luck. Saquon Barkley versus David Johnson. David Johnson, good, but he's no Saquon Barkley. Come on. He's nobody's Saquon Barkley except Saquon Barkley. He is running against a very, very stout Philadelphia front 4. So I think he's going to hit the wall a couple times, but as we talked about earlier, he is a PPR threat and a PPR machine, so he can always just run to the flat or just kind of do a quick hitch. He'll get the ball, and I think he'll easily score north of 30 here. David Johnson, though, will easily score north of 20, I would imagine, so he'll have a good week, but I think this is going to go to Saquon. In the tight end position, it's Julio. We have 2 Atlanta wide receivers, Julio Jones for Brandon and Calvin Ridley for Noel. I think both these guys are really good. They're going against a really shitty Tampa Bay defense. They're 30th overall against the pass. I think, though, just looking at these 2, Calvin Ridley next to Julio Jones, you got to give to Julio Jones. That dude is a stud. Travis Kelce versus Jared Cook. I very much like Jared Cook. I think he's typically an underrated player, but Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce. And he's going against an easier New England defense relative to Seattle, who is very good. They're 5th overall against the tight end. Got to give that one to Kelce. Tariq Cohen versus T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton is doubtful at this point. He currently has a chest and hamstring issue, so pretty much that's not fun to have. No matter, so if his hamstring gets better, then his chest hurts. If his chest gets better, then his hamstring hurts. So it's really not a great position to be in. That's probably why he's doubtful at this point. He does, however, have 64-point Isaiah Crowell on his bench, so I would imagine he would plug him in. Isaiah Crowell is questionable, however. He did not practice with an ankle injury today, so we will have to watch that one. In a pinch, he has Matt Burrito in the wings as well. He's been having a good year. He is doubtful, though. So really, if he were to play, it would be Tyler Boyd, who's not bad. He's been averaging 25 points, and he is perfectly healthy as of today. So unless he gets hit by a bus or something, I would imagine that flex spot is going to be filled by Tyler Boyd by the time it's game time. So looking at Tyler Boyd versus Tariq Cohen, I like Tariq Cohen a lot. I think he's got a lot to offer. He's a really good player. So that goes to Tariq. Tyler Lockett versus TJ Yeldon. I think Lockett he doesn't get the respect he deserves in fantasy football. Everyone knows his name, but I think he's more often overshadowed by Doug Baldwin, a la Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. You'd think Demaryius Thomas, being the wide receiver number 1, is going to score more points, but not the case here in Seattle. Right now, I think Emmanuel Sanders is the better wide receiver, as is Tyler Lockett relative to Doug Baldwin. So I think Doug Baldwin, these guys are both really good. I think Tyler Lockett's averaging 28 points a week. TJ Yeldon's averaging 25. I'm going to give it to Tyler. I'm going to buck the trend here. ESPN has it go to TJ Yeldon. I'm going to give it to Tyler Lockett. Seattle versus nobody. I think Seattle will beat nobody. Oakland's offense has not been that great this year, so I think that they're averaging about 15 points a game. They're projected 12. I bet they'll hit that. I bet they'll hit it somewhere in that teen range, so they'll do better than 0 right now for Brandon. And then the kickers. So I think, and punter. This is going to be a close game. This is going to be a really close game, and both of you are kind of at that point where you need to win, even though we have the majority of the season ahead of us. You really can't go from 1-5 to a playoff spot without a hell of a lot of luck. So I would say, looking at these teams, I would pick Noel to win. I think that there's just better potential there. I think both will have explosive games. I think both of you are going to score quite a bit, but I think this is your game to lose, Noel. So let's move on to the next one. Download Adobe Flash Player. No, wait, that's not it. Where is that? Okay, it's Chug at Ganondoria's. Gandalf Ria's. Ganoran.
Gandalf Sopapillas. Wait. No. So this game is projected as of now to be quite close, with a line of just over 1 point. With the game right now favored Molly 148.3 to Grant's 147.4. I would imagine there'll be some tinkering going on with both rosters here before the games get underway. But right off the bat, there's kind of an interesting projection here where Deshaun Watson, who is listed as questionable, is projected to outscore Jared Goff. And that is basically based off of the fact that Deshaun Watson is playing Buffalo while Jared Goff is playing against Denver. And while I really hope that Denver is able to bounce back in a big way back at home, because they have been atrocious on the road under Vance Joseph. I think, right now, especially with just Deshaun Watson being questionable, I'm tempted to give this one to Jared Goff and buck ESPN, because Denver's defense just Bradley Roby isn't playing very well on the outside now, and missed a meeting on Monday, and there's discord, and who knows if they actually can bounce back. So I'm actually tempted to give the check mark to Jared Goff there. Nyheim Hines, who I would imagine this week is going to get the bulk of the carries again against a kind of up and down New York Jets defense. Like, they've been really good some weeks. Like, they killed Detroit in week 1, but then they kind of will disappear a bit. But they're solid, but they don't have that kind of stretch of being really good, which they had last week or week 1, going against Todd Gurley. But I mean, it's Mike, as you said before, they're just players you can't remove the check mark away from. So Todd Gurley, even if Denver's defense plays well, it's Todd Gurley. He's going to catch a lot of passes. He's going to run the ball a lot. So, yep, there's that. Antonio Brown, even though that he's playing in Cincinnati's defense, which is very dirty when playing the Steelers, obviously he's going to get the check mark over John Brown, who this is his first year in Baltimore after playing his first few years in Arizona. Then Zach Ertz obviously gets the check mark over Jimmy Graham. Sterling Shepard against Alshon, whatever. Sorry, I call him. That's an old ESPN thing. I think that one's kind of a wash there, because both players can put up a lot of points very fast, and Jeffrey is working his way back from an injury. So who knows, but it could be big either way. Ryan Grant going against Royce Freeman, and both Denver backs have had pretty good weeks the past few weeks. But Ryan Grant with T.Y. Hilton being doubtful for this game should see a lot more touches. Dolphins defense against Chicago's offense, which can be explosive. However, never mind. I don't care that it is Phillip Rivers and the Chargers. The Browns defense is legit good when they want to be. So I'm actually going to move the check mark over to Grant there. Kickers, I really hope Mason Crosby bounces back, but Justin Tucker and his operatic brilliance, I think, will carry the day. Punters are punters. So I actually, as it stands right now, I think this is correct. It's been really close, but I was about to give it to Grant. I think this one is going to definitely be there's more in favor of Molly here, despite the fact that there's Todd Gurley there and the Browns defense, but defenses aren't going to score that much points unless the other offense does really bad. So with that, now I'm going to move on to the next game, which is Mike versus, my internet's being slow, versus Josh. And Mike, right now, it has you comfortably ahead, 161.1 to 143.5. Woohoo! And again, yes, Ben Roethlisberger has been playing well, but for some reason, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, when they played each other in the past few years, the games tend to be somewhat low scoring and a lot of dirty hits and people who get suspended. So I would not be surprised if Carson Wentz, puts up a fair amount of points against a Giants defense, which is underrated, but yet not that good. So I would actually switch the check mark there. Melvin Gordon going against the aforementioned Cleveland defense, which is better than people expected it to be. Obviously gets the check mark over Wendell Smallwood, who is now the starter after Jay Ajayi is out for the rest of the year with a torn ACL. Devontae Adams against Jarvis Landry. This one, total toss-up. And I was reading the average. It's like, wait, why does it have the check mark to Jarvis Landry? Oh, well, the check mark should go to Devontae Adams because he's been averaging more on a team that hasn't been playing all that well for Green Bay, who's going against a decent San Francisco defense, but not all that great. So I would move that to your side there, Mike. Greg the leg, third leg that is maybe back from an injury, hopefully for you, Mike. So going against a questionable. So it's the battle of questionable tight ends. If Gronkowski plays, he has more upside, but not by much, just because Cam Newton loves Greg Olsen. So I guess it comes down to who plays here. And I think if they both play, I'm going to give it to Greg Olsen because Gronk just can't get any help this season. Like, they're triple covering him because no one cares what the other receivers are doing. Even with Edelman back, that might change, but we'll see. James White, check mark over Kenyon Drake. Yep. Bilal Powell over Austin Eckler, who is the backup running back for the Chargers. All right. And then on to defenses, Steelers against Cincinnati. I really like that. Broncos against the Rams. I don't like that. So ESPN has the check mark there. Correct. And then your kickers are kickers and your punters are punters. So, Mike, I think the projection might be actually a little low for you. And Josh, I respect you sticking with the Broncos, but God damn it, Broncos. I think, Mike, this one should be on paper. I really like your team to get the win here and to get it fairly soundly. But it's fantasy, so you never know. And maybe Josh will sacrifice whatever he has to sacrifice to the fantasy gods to get out of their shithouse. And with that, now it's on to Space Force versus the Legend of Lincoln.
Let's duke it. So the Space Force is taking on what is arguably the most legendary of Lincolns. So this is going to be interesting to watch. Now, right now, the ESPN projection has Courtney ahead 171.9 to 161.3. And that might be right, but let's see. Both these teams are really good. Both these teams are tied for first in their division at 3-2. So this could be a really big toss-up here, but let's try to figure this one out. At the quarterback position, we have famous Jameis versus Patrick Mahomes. That one is not a problem. Patrick Mahomes, the number one quarterback right now, is averaging 36 points per game. Philip Lindsay versus Christian McCaffrey. I love me some Philip Lindsay. He's a hometown boy, CU grad, now a Denver Bronco, but he's running up against a pretty good LA Rams defense, and Christian McCaffrey's just been amazing this year. So I'm going to give that one to Christian McCaffrey. ODB, nope. Odell G. ODEBJ.
Dirty bastard. Wait.
That's one. Odell Beckham Jr. versus Cooper Kupp. These guys are both really awesome. I really like both of these guys quite a bit. However, Cooper Kupp, I'm assuming he's playing. He was knocked out with a concussion last week, so I'd be surprised if he's back this soon. But Odell Beckham Jr. Is playing against a really bad Philadelphia secondary, so I think I got to give it to him. And he might throw a touchdown. Who knows? He might be a better quarterback than Eli Manning. Kyle Rudolph versus Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate, I guess, is in because O.J. Howard is out. Yeah, O.J. Howard is out, so Cameron Brate's going to be in there, but it's hard to trust any Buccaneers player now that Fitzmagic is gone. Kyle Rudolph, on the other hand, is averaging about 16 points a week, so I got to give it to – I think ESPN has it wrong. I think it's got to go to Kyle Rudolph there. Stephon Diggs versus Kareem Hunt. Both these dudes are amazing. However, Stephon Diggs is going in. It's a pretty tough Arizona secondary. He's done fourth best in the league versus Kareem Hunt's running against a fairly good New England rush defense there. So I think that I got to give it to Stephon Diggs. That dude's just magical. Plus, if you've seen the commercial, his hands stick to everything.
Like trash cans.
Like trash cans and mail. And his white neighbor's like, what is he doing here?
Oh, God. No.
We
shouldn't laugh at that.
We should. Thanks. Anyways, so the next position is Juju Smith-Schuster, who's been having a really good year opposite Antonio Brown, and then versus Keenan Allen, who's having a pretty good year, averaging about 22 points per game. Keenan Allen's going up against a bad defense, but so is Juju Smith-Schuster, so I have to give that one to Juju there. They have that going to Keenan Allen. I'm just picking completely against ESPN here. Then you have the Bears defense against Miami versus the Packers defense against San Francisco. Miami just sucks this year, and the Bears look on fire. The Bears look really good. They are another NFC contender, I'd say, for the Super Bowl. The Packers look good, but they're not as good defensively. They are playing a really bad San Francisco offense there, so I think that might be this one's a toss-up. I think the Packers could do really well hosting San Francisco, and then the Bears could easily do well in Miami. So that one's, I would say, a toss-up. I'm not going to try to make a call there. And then each of them has their special teams guys, and they'll contribute. I think, boy, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. I think it's got to go to Courtney just because of the two top positions. Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey are money. You can bank on them. Famous Jameis and Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay, you can bank not as much. Jameis Winston might have a good week, but it's difficult to say. Last week, he got a whopping 10.2 points, so I just don't see that there. So I think it's going to be a close one, but my vote is for Courtney. So the last game is the Doom Givers versus the Rams. Take away, Noel.
Oh, sorry, I skipped some games, didn't I? Sorry about that.
No problem.
So yeah, got Battle of America versus the plush toy. And so far, the line favors Matt Larson at 176.8 to Ken Fields' 157.6 points. But let's look at that. As of now, the check mark is going to old Cameron Newton, who's playing against the Skins defense. And while Cam does get some points because he runs you the ball and can get touchdowns, you have to like, in my mind, you have to like Matt Ryan bouncing back against a very suspect Tampa Bay secondary. So I'm actually going to flip that over to the Parker Rams. Adrian Peterson is listed as questionable, playing against a, surprisingly enough, fairly stout Carolina defense. So even if you were to play, he's going up against a tough defense, as where James Conner has been just getting lots of touches, not just running the ball, but receiving. And this, I believe, is the last week they think he's going to be the feature starter before Le'Veon Bell comes back. So I think the check mark is correct there. A.J. Green, you have to go with A.J. Green like all the time. Sammy Watkins has had some okay games, even some good games in Kansas City, but he's the one part of the passing game that doesn't really seem to be working there. So yeah, it's A.J. Green. Trey Burton, Skittles. Packers defense has not been very good against the tight end this year, but he is listed as questionable. And Trey Burton, I don't know how Miami's been against the tight end so far this year, but I don't know. I'm going to give that one a toss-up. But obviously, if Skittles is hampered by injury, Trey Burton has had some really good games. I know we were all like, why would you take Trey Burton? But Ken Field proved us wrong, even though he drafted all those kickers and stuff. Tyreek Hill not getting the check mark over Joe Mixon. I can see it, but Tyreek Hill can fill it up fast. So I don't really know what to pick there, because Tyreek Hill can just bust big plays open and go from, the 23.5 points he's projected to get to, say, 70. So who knows there? Alex Collins, after being money for, was it Ken Field who had him last year, Mike? We'll look it up later.
I was going to say I don't remember.
But whoever it was a money waiver wire pickup.
He was. That I do remember.
He has not been the same this year, but if unfortunately Sony Michel, well, I should say unfortunately, almost all Patriots players would be listed as questionable if Belichick had his way. So hopefully for just Sony's health there, he starts, and if he does, he's definitely an upgrade over Alex Collins. Jaguars defense, if they're not hampered by Blake Bortles, is very, very good, and Dallas's offense, because Jason Garrett doesn't like to feature Ezekiel Elliott too much, is not very good. So I like that there. Although, on the same token, the Cowboys are playing Jacksonville. So if Bortles continues to Bortles like he did this week, I don't know if you saw, Mike, while attempting to throw a ball to a receiver running deep over the middle, he somehow managed to nail an offensive lineman in the head with the football.
I didn't see that.
It was like, what? How is this even possible? Like, the ball didn't slip out of his hand. His mechanics just completely broke down, and the ball kind of like came out this weird three-quarter. It was odd. It was almost Tebow-esque. But anyways, I like Jacksonville's defense against Dallas' offense. Just because you hope that Bortles won't Bortles too much. And then from there, kickers, punters. So I like the plush toy of Matt Larson here this week to take down the 3-2 America Doom Givers. But I do think there's some things here that, Tyreek Hill basically being that upside that could propel Ken Field to a surprise win. But I think this is Larson's game to lose.
All right. I just found that that player you're talking about, Noel. Not only did he nail that guy in the back of the head, it was intercepted. So he just
there you
tossed the ball as hard as he possibly could at the back of the lineman's head, and it just bounced completely up. And wow, that was a good heads up play by the Kansas City defender there. So it was, I believe, the center. No, that was his right guard. Oh
yep, it was a guard.
Right in there.
Have you watched The Good Place, Mike?
Oh my God, no.
You should. I'll try and find you something after we finish up here. But one of the characters is obsessed with Blake Bortles, so there are tons of Bortles gifs, which are hard to find on Giphy. But we'll see if we can find one for the post, because they're hilarious.
That sounds good to me. I'm going to post the article I just found on the interwebs here so that everyone can enjoy this amazing Blake Bortles pass on the back of his own guard's head. That was really funny. So, okay, well, then we are at the end of our podcast, folks. There's just one last thing to cover, which is the poll, and then we'll wrap it up here. This week's poll is the trade deadline, which is going to be the end of next week. So it's actually Wednesday the 17th. The question is, the trade deadline is next week. Are you going to make a trade? Your options are yes, no, and maybe so. So go ahead and vote. That's it. Noel, is there anything else you want to add today?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Again, sorry for last week. We're ready to rock and roll. Good luck this week, and send us out, Noel.
Go Broncos! Firebats Joseph.